The usual produce section will carry fresh navel oranges, Eureka lemons, Mexican limes, tangerines, mandarins, and grapefruits. Varieties such as lemons and limes are even some of the most common fruits used to spice up our food. Citrus is just not wildly popular for its taste, it is essential for our modern diet due to its high abundance of nutrients such as vitamin C, potassium, folate, vitamin B6, riboflavin, calcium, and dietary fiber. There is no denying citrus is one of the most important crops in the world. This exceptional fruit has woven itself into the majority of everyone's daily life. Approximately 130 million tons of citrus fruits are produced in 1 year alone across 140 countries. Due to this high importance, it is critical that we understand how our modern citrus came to be and where it originates. This documentary will discuss just that, taking a look into its fascinating and mysterious evolutionary past. There are hundreds of varieties brought forth across the ages, since their cultivation in ancient times. Thousands of years of citrus agriculture has created a huge diversity in the number of cultigens. Many different citrus varieties are complex mixtures that make them very difficult to classify their phylogeny or evolutionary history. For example, the lemon is not an ancestral species of citrus. It is certain thousands of years ago, someone intentionally or accidentally crossed different types of citrus together. If you look at the genome of the lemon, you will find 3 separate ancestral species: the citron, pomelo, and the mandarin. As you can imagine, the jumbled mess of citrus hybridization has puzzled botanists for centuries. In recent years, extraordinary studies looking into the citrus genome have been opening up information into citrus evolution that have provided a solid look into its past, origins, and dispersal for the first time. There has been an identification of 10 pure ancestral, true citrus species, 7 of them from Asia, which includes citrons, pomelos, mandarins, micrantha, incangenensis, kumquats, manxinensis, which is a type of mandarin, and 3 from Australia: the Australian desert lime, the Australian round lime, and the Australian finger lime. This particular genome study is currently the most comprehensive phylogenetic study into citrus. This information can change in the future when more studies are conducted. It is clear that all of these progenitor species are in the same genus. Genus is a taxonomic category that ranks above species but below families. For example, our genus is Homo, but our species is Sapien. Different species can share a genus, such as our closely related ancestors, Homo neanderthalensis and Homo erectus. It was once believed that Fortunella, Eurema citrus, and Microcitrus represented their own genuses, but it is now clear all 10 species belong to the genus Citrus. I will still refer to them with their original genus names, just think of them as subgenuses now. Traditionally, the genus Citrus has been divided into 2 genera, Citrus and Papeda. Furthermore, the subgenus of Citrus, also called Citrus, has been split into 3 main progenitor species: pomelos, citrons, and mandarins, since their evolutionary ties are closer. The hybridization and introgressions of these 3 wild citrus species make up the vast majority of commercial citrus species today. Before we get much further into the video, I would like to take some time and give a brief description of each of the native species of citrus. Besides perhaps the mandarin and the kumquat, these progenitor species are little known and obscure to most Western cultures. The pomelo, or as it's scientifically named, Citrus maxima, has the largest fruit of any citrus. The fruits are oblate or spheroid and have a thick peel if wild. The seeds are large and wrinkled. The leaves are very big and oval, with a blunt point at the tip, and have a broadly rounded base. The petiole, which refers to this smaller leaf on the same petal, is broadly winged and more or less cordate. Cordate refers it to being heart-shaped. Citrus maxima is found in southeastern Asia, South China, and the East Indian archipelago, today in the wild. In America, this fruit can be found in farmers' markets, or usually in Asian grocery stores. The palatability of this fruit has likely changed drastically since its cultivation thousands of years ago. Although similar to the grapefruit, most commercially important pomelos are much less bitter. Pomelos have both acidic and acidic-less variants, so the taste of this fruit varies greatly depending on the variety. They can be bitter, acidic, or sweet. The citron, or Citrus medica, was one of the first citrus species to be introduced into the Mediterranean basin after Alexander the Great's conquest into Persia. It's one of the earliest confirmed cultivated species of citrus. The citron is even depicted on the walls of a botanical garden at the Karnak Temple in Egypt, dating back to approximately 3,500 years ago, during the reign of Thutmose III. It was likely first cultivated in India, perhaps thousands of years before this. The citron today plays an important role in Buddhism and Judaism. The fingered variant of the citron, called Buddha's hand, is used as an offering at Buddhist temples. The etrog variation of the citron is used during the week-long celebration of Sukkot in prayer rituals. The citron resembles a lemon, but has a far thicker rind, and contains very little juice. The leaves are smooth, and they are either bluntly pointed or rounded at the tips. The petioles are short, wingless, or narrowly margined. The fruits are of a medium size to a very large size. The shape of them varies from oblong, oval, and fingered. They can have a smooth or bumpy surface. Citrons are found growing in the wild in India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and China. The mandarin, or Citrus reticulata, is a progenitor species most Western cultures are more familiar with. A tangerine is essentially a variation of the mandarin. Most commercial mandarins are not purely mandarins and are introgressed with pomelos from 10 to 30% genetically. There are only a few confirmed pure mandarin species. The two species I will mention in this video are Citrus reticulata tachibana and Sunchu shakat. Sunchu shakat is found in the wild in Assam, China, and Japan. It has an intensely acidic taste, and it is slightly depressed globose in shape. The petioles of this mandarin are nearly wingless. Citrus reticulata variation tachibana was once thought to be its own species, but genetic testing has revealed that tachibana is too closely related to mandarins and is rather a subspecies of mandarins. It is widespread from Taiwan to the main island of Japan. This subspecies is considered a wild type that has persisted since prehistoric times. Tachibanas are highly resistant to the cold and even snow. The petioles are not winged. Citrus manxinensis, appears morphologically similar to the mandarin, but it is genetically distinct from a tequilata. It is its own true species of citrus. It is native to the mountain forest in Mangshan, Hunan province. Citrus micrantha is little known outside of citrus enthusiasts. A micrantha crossed with a citron is what gives us the Mexican lime. Micrantha is cultivated on a small scale as a hairwash product in the southern Philippine Islands. It's in the subgenus Papita group and grows naturally in the wild on the islands of Cebu and Bohol. The fruits are obviate to oblong and are relatively small. The winged petioles are very large and pronounced, almost the same size as the main leaf. Citrus incontinensis is another papita that is likely only known by citrus enthusiasts. It is relatively rare in cultivation. It has small mandarin-like fruit and have leaves that feature a broad petiole and resemble the leaves of the yuzu and the kaffir lime in appearance. The fruit has a fragrant but rugged rind and may be oval, spherical, or flattened in shape, ripening to yellow or orange. The fruit is both bitter and sour. It is native to southwestern and west-central China. This species is known for being extremely hardy and able to grow in relatively cold environments. The citrus subgenus Fortunella, or commonly just known as the kumquat, is the last of the Asian progenitor species in this list. This species of citrus consists of small edible fruits. The entire fruit can be eaten, along with the peel and rind. The leaves are unifoliate, with a distinctive silver coloration on their underside. Fortunella blooms a month or two later than other species of citrus. Fortunella hinzi still grows commonly in a wild state along the Nanling Mountains in South China. The kumquat can withstand frost down to 14 degrees Fahrenheit, or -10 Celsius without injury, which is pretty unusual for a citrus plant. That ends the introduction to the 7 ancestral, pure species found in Asia. Now we will discuss the species found in New Guinea, Australia, New Caledonia, and the surrounding islands. I will start from the 3 remaining species, from the study that found 10 pure, native species: the Australian finger lime, round lime, and the desert lime. I will also be adding 2 more subgenera, Clemenia and Oxanthera, which are also clustered with the Australian limes. These species all belong to the subgenuses Eurymocitrus, Microcitrus, Clemenia, and Oxanthera. Eurymocitrus, or the Australian desert lime, is distinctly interesting since it is the only citrus species that has high xerophytic adaptations. Xerophytic meaning species adapted to living in conditions with little water. This species is from southeastern Queensland in Australia and commonly grows as a small tree or large shrub. This citrus resembles trees found in the southwest American desert. The leaves are grayish-green, very thick, and oblong in shape, extremely different from other citrus species. The fruits are obovoid, or subglobose, depending on the strain. They are relatively small, thin-skinned, and pleasantly acidic. There is only one species of Eurymocitrus, Eurymocitrus glauca. This is one of the 3 ancestral species from Australia described in the original list. The next subgenus is Microcitrus, which contains 6 species. This group is semi-xerophytic and can endure long periods of droughts. The two species I will discuss from this subgenus are Microcitrus australisica, or the finger lime, and Microcitrus australis, which were in the original 10 ancestral species list. Australisica, or the finger lime, is a thorny shrub or small tree of lowland rainforest in the coastal border region of Queensland and New South Wales in Australia. In recent years, it has become a commercial crop, and the fruit comes in colors from deep pink to blue-green. The fruit is filled with juice vesicles, and is sometimes dubbed as citrus caviar. The leaves are only about half an inch long. As the Australian finger lime matures, it becomes very dense with branches, and is extremely thorny. Microcitrus australis, or the Australian round lime, is a spherical or slightly pear-shaped citrus fruit with thick green or yellow skin. They grow in Queensland, Australia, and can grow to a height of 30 to 60 feet tall, making them the largest native citrus tree. The fruit is said to have an exceptional flavor, and is grown commercially. Similarly to the finger lime, the leaves are relatively small. We have already gone over the 3 Australian lime species of the original 10 list, but I will be adding 2 more subgenuses, Oxanthera and Clementia. These 2 subgenera also likely represent original citrus species, relatively untouched by man's cultivation. They are close relatives of the Australian limes, and likely share a common ancestor. There are little photos of these species, so I could not find any footage of them, but they are still worth discussing. I will also add 1 more close relative of the citrus, Poncerus trifoliata. Oxanthera and Clementia are phylogenetically in the same clade as the Australian limes. Oxanthera comprises of 6 species endemic to New Caledonia, sometimes referred to as false oranges. The leaves on Oxanthera neocaledonica are obovate and a petiole is present. The fruit is oblong and resembles that of the sweet orange on the surface. Clementia originally was considered to be a citrus hybrid, but genetic testing has proven it is its own species. One of the few citrus plants it will hybridize with is the kumquat. Clementia has a unique appearance. The fruit is tangerine-sized and has a short, narrow petiole. They are described as sweet and lemony in flavor. It is a highly tropical plant and can only be grown in greenhouses in the United States. It is found in Papua New Guinea and surrounding islands, where it is enjoyed by the locals. Poncerus trifoliata exists outside the citrus genus. However, it likely was the result of an admixture of an ancient citrus hybrid with an unknown parent. Its chloroplast phylogeny is nested inside the clade that contains pomelos, mandarins, and micrantha. It likely has 1 parent from inside the citrus genus, and another which is an outsider. It was once believed Poncerus was a monotypic clade. However, another species, Poncerus polyandra, was discovered in 1984. Poncerus leaves are trifoliate, oval in shape, and are evergreen. The branches are densely clustered and thorny. The fruits ripen in late fall. They are round, slightly smaller than a mandarin, and are extremely bitter. You may recognize Poncerus if you have ever seen sucker growth growing from your citrus tree. It is extremely popular as a rootstock variety due to its high cold tolerance and hardiness. Most citrus only grows above zone 9, but Poncerus can grow in zone 6. Many of its hybrids are also used as rootstocks as well. The genus Poncerus is native both to northern and southern China, Korea, and Japan. It is sometimes referred to as the Chinese bitter orange, Japanese bitter orange, and the hardy orange. That concludes the short descriptions of the ancestral or pure species of citrus. It is a lot to take in at once, but hopefully will provide more context as we delve further into the fascinating story of citrus evolution. These descriptions established that true citrus species extend through a broad area in the wild, from India, Southeast Asia, China, Melanesia, and Australia. However, where did the citrus genus originate geographically and diversify into the species we know today? Over the past few centuries, this has long been debated. One hypothesis from 2009 theorized that citrus originated in Australia and migrated northward toward Southeast Asia. Another theory in 1967 listed Papua New Guinea as the ancestral home of citrus. A theory proposed by Tanaka in 1959 suggested that citrus originated in the eastern Himalayas, as a large number of important species of citrus can be found here. Today, based on the evidence, Tanaka's theory prevails over the latter. The eastern Himalayas are comprised of northern India, Myanmar, and western Yunnan, which have a plethora of citrus species and varieties that can be found living in non-cultivated areas. True species such as wild pomelos, citrons, Sunshushakat, Indian wild mandarins, and incungenensis populate these regions. Hybridized species are also found in the wild in this area, such as sour oranges, lemons, kaffir limes, yuzus, sweet oranges, and Mexican limes. It is highly remarkable that all of these citrus species are living in such a close proximity and density. The presence of this high diversity of citrus found in this region strongly supports that this area was the center of citrus evolution. One important aspect to note is that only 2 of the 7 Asian continental true species of citrus are not found in this area, Micrantha and the kumquat. The evidence for Tanaka's theory continues to pile up with genetic testing and fossil samples. Now, we will take a journey back in time to further explore the eastern Himalayas as the origin of citrus. It's the late Miocene epoch, approximately 7 to 8 million years in the past. The world is a very different place, but it is becoming slowly more familiar to us. The last common ancestor of gorillas, chimpanzees, and humans climbs through the rainforest of Africa. Another great ape, Oreopithecus, swings through the dense rainforest of Italy, and giant thunderbirds rule the Australian and South American continents. The story of citrus takes us to Asia. We are deep in the dense tropics of the eastern Himalayas, in what will be the Bang Mai Formation, in what is now the Yunnan province in South China. A leaf simply falls to the ground and undergoes the process of fossilization. However, it is no ordinary leaf, and it will help solve a centuries-long polemic argument if a particular fruit our species has cultivated for thousands of years. It is a leaf belonging to Citrus lingzhenensis, possibly the crown of all still living citrus species today. The leaf characteristics on the extinct species, lingzhenensis, closely resembles extant species. It combines several features of Citrus maxima or pomelos and species in the Papita group, such as incungenensis. There is a general agreement in the scientific community that the continental Asian citrus species today emerged during the late Miocene, around 7 to 8 million years ago. This is supported by molecular dating. The ancestor of all citrus species today rapidly radiated from a single species into the 7 present in Asia today during this time. The discovery of links angensis matches up perfectly with this theory as well, with the idea that citrus originated in the eastern Himalayas in regions such as Yunnan, Assam, and northern Myanmar. It is definite evidence that citrus grew as a native plant in late Miocene Yunnan. The radiation during the late Miocene, 6 to 8 million years ago, is thought to be responsible for all 7 of the pure native Asian citrus species today. According to genome studies, this radiation occurred rapidly. The late Miocene was a time of massive climatic changes on a global scale and has been described as forging our modern world. The Earth was cooling down from a period of being much warmer globally than how it is today. At the thermal maximum in the Miocene epoch, around 15 million years ago, rainforests span all the way to Europe and South Africa. In the late Miocene, 6 to 8 million years ago, the Earth started cooling, and ocean temperatures were becoming more comparable to how they are today. Seasonality was also on the rise, and the range of the rainforest decreased. This cooling trend caused an aridification in the interior of the continents, which resulted in drier vegetation and a decline of tropical rainforests. Citrus still carries the phenotypes and adaptations of this climate shift to drier conditions today. Citrus on the surface shows all the characteristics of a tropical understory bush with lush foliage, high chlorophyll content, and a shallow root system. However, there are many phenotypic adaptations citrus still carries to deal with long periods of water stress, a relic from its rapid radiation phase. The characteristics such as waxy leaves and fruits, which prevent water loss, independent juice sacs, low photosynthetic rates, low transpiration rates, and slow growth patterns are some of these adaptations. These adaptations are likely why cultivated citrus is able to grow in such a wide array of climates today, a tropical shrub that grows well in Mediterranean and arid climates. The global trend was also very local in Southeast Asia. The diversification of citrus coincides with a period of drastic uplift in the Tibetan Plateau and a phase of monsoon weakening. 10 million years ago, the climate of the southern Himalayas was heavily controlled by the intense Indian summer monsoon that brought heavy rainfall. When it suddenly started going through a weakening phase, 8 million years ago, this drastically altered the climate, making it drier with only seasonal heavy rains. This not only was a factor in citrus diversification, but was also responsible for rapid radiations in many types of organisms. The changing climate replaced the paleoflora, replacing tropical trees with grasses. The unique levels of different precipitation levels in the southeastern Tibetan Plateau made it a hotspot for rapid radiations of all the different plant lineages. For example, it is believed rhododendrons diversified in this area as well, at the same time as citrus. There are many hotspots similar to this occurring across the world in the late Miocene. From the center of origin in what is now Assam to Yunnan, China, citrus primarily spread in 2 directions, south and east. However, citrons are the exception, which are believed to have spread westward before spreading east. Not surprisingly, the Himalayas blocked the spread to the north. The pomelo is believed to have taken a southern route into the tropical monsoonal lands of the Indo-Chinese peninsula and surrounding islands. The Papita micrantha is believed to have taken the same route, except ending up in the islands of the Philippines. Phylogenetic evidence also supports an idea that citrons, pomelos, and micrantha make up a different clade from one composed of mandarins, kumquats, and Australian limes. However, this is still controversial within the scientific community. Earlier in the video, I stated another theory that puts pomelos, citrons, and mandarins in the same subgenus called citrus. There are other contradicting theories as well. For example, another study based on complete chloroplast DNA sequences came up with 3 main clades for citrus. The first being one composed of micrantha and pomelos, a second one composed of mandarins and inconginenses, and a third one composed of citrons and the Australian limes. Now this theory does support an idea that micrantha and pomelos make up a separate clade within the genus Citrus, but it places citrons with the Australian limes. These studies get different results because they are either using different DNA sequences or using different evolutionary evidence, such as morphological or chemical traits. All these different theories on how these progenitor and native citrus species are related show just how much more there is to discover about the evolutionary relationships within the genus Citrus. If pomelos, citrons, and micrantha do make up their own clade within citrus, this would suggest that after the initial radiation of citrus, all 3 share a common ancestor. When citrons expanded westward, the ancestor of pomelos and micrantha split once more in the Thai-Malay Peninsula. This theory makes the most sense, according to their biogeography. The story continues with inconginenses, mandarins, and kumquats, who spread eastward of the initial radiation zone. There were 3 corridors of confluence eastward: the Pacific coast, associated with kumquats, the Yangtze River, associated with mandarins, and central China, associated with inconginenses. Interestingly, there were no barriers between Myanmar and Yunnan 8 million years ago in the past, as there are now. The eastern portion of the Himalayas, or the Hengduan Range, did not exist. This area actually underwent a massive uplift after the Miocene into the Pliocene. Mandarins and kumquats may be phylogenetically more closely related and likely shared a common ancestor that took this route. However, the study based on complete chloroplast markers clustered mandarins and inconginensis in the same clade. It is probable all 3 share a common ancestor after the original diversification of citrus into Yunnan. We have discussed the radiation and spread of the Asian true species of citrus. However, a portion of this story regarding the Australian limes remains untold. It will take us further south, past the Wallace Line, into what is now Papua New Guinea and Australia. We have traveled forward in time, from the Miocene to 5 million years in the past, into the Pliocene epoch. Our own lineage just separated from our common ancestor with chimpanzees. A possible direct ancestor of us, Ardipithecus cadaba, roams the savannas of Ethiopia, and may even be using bipedalism as its primary form of locomotion. The mastodons diversify throughout the world, and camels are abundant in the continent of North America, the oldest representative of the mammoth genus, Mammuthus subplanifrons, roams the savannas of South Africa. The only other fossilized and extinct member of the citrus genus, besides Lynx anginensis, Citrus melitensis, grows as an understory bush in what will be Valdarno, Italy. A world away in the continent of Australia or Sahul, our story of citrus evolution continues. Unlike Asian species of citrus, the Australian limes did not diversify during the cooling of the late Miocene. Genome studies have placed the emergence of the Australian lime clade at around 5 million years ago, at the beginning of the late Pliocene epoch, The climates of this epoch are relatively similar to today, if you discount human alteration. As aforementioned, the Australian lime is a generic name used for genera Eurymocitrus and Microcitrus. Clymenia and Oxanthera, which were described earlier in the video, are also clustered with the Australian limes, based off of chloroplast markers, so we will associate them with a generic name, Australian limes as well. All of these genera are found from Papua New Guinea, New Caledonia to Australia. Their adaptations range from tropical to desert environments. These species likely form a monophyletic clade within citrus, meaning their ancestry originates from the same diversification that led to the pure Asian citrus species in Asia. It is speculated a species related to the kumquat migrated from Southeast Asia to these areas and further diversified into the Australian lime groups we know today. This is based off of the fact that, phylogenetically, kumquats group with these species according to chloroplast markers. In addition, they share some morphological or physical traits as well. Although in some studies, the citron is shown clustering with the Australian limes, it is more accepted in the scientific community that kumquats are more likely their ancestors. Biogeography supports this idea as well, since citrons spread westward of the initial radiation, while kumquats were located on the South China coastline. Kumquats and the fruit of the Australian desert lime, or Eurymocitrus, both have a low number of fruit loculi and ovules. Loculi refers to a small cavity in the fruit. For example, if you slice an orange in half, you will see individual juice sacs. In the kumquat, you will only see 4. This is also true for Eurymocitrus. To further show the close relationship between the Australian pure species and kumquats is that Clymenia does not hybridize with most citrus species, but will with kumquats. Citrus was not alone in its early Pliocene migration to Australia. Botanists theorize that many other plant species crossed over at the same time as well. Australian flora closely resembles Indo-Malayan flora, so much so that it can even be considered intrusive. These Asian species likely outcompeted original Australian species. The migration was aided by the uplift of Western Malaysia, which started to occur around 5 million years ago. Interestingly, Sumatra, Java, Sulawesi, and parts of the Banda Arc went from being below sea level to being similar to how they are today, 5 million years ago. Ceram and Timor only emerged around 3 million years ago. These new landforms springing up from regional plate reorganizations in what is now Indonesia would have acted as stepping stones for citrus to reach Australia, as well as the other flora. All of these events aided citrus in its migration south to colonize Australia and the surrounding islands. The Australian limes then radiated into diverse environments into the fascinating species we know today. There is one more diversification period worth mentioning that took place in the early Pleistocene, around 2 million years ago, which involved the mandarin. The Pleistocene saw 11 major glacial events and was a time of massive climate fluctuations. This period gave rise to all the animals we know today and the beloved awe-inspiring megafauna we associate with the generic term Ice Age. By the end of this period, our own species colonized all of the continents. 2.4 million years ago, it is theorized that Citrus reticulata, Tachibana, became isolated from the rest of Citrus reticulata on the mainland of Asia. As mentioned earlier in the video, Citrus Tachibana is found in Taiwan, Japan, and a few other islands off the coast of mainland Asia. It is believed to have gotten to these landmasses during a glacial maxima when sea levels were far lower. Studies show that Taiwan, Japan, and the Ryukyu archipelago received much of their flora during this time from mainland China. These land bridges appeared 11 times during every glacial maxima in the Pleistocene. Citrus reticulata tachibana eventually became more and more isolated to where it became a subspecies of reticulata. That concludes the story of how all the native species of citrus evolved, and the climactic changes that pushed their evolution. We have traveled to 2 major speciation events, and 1 minor one, over a span of 6 million years. We started in the late Miocene epoch, and ended in the early Pleistocene, 2.4 million years ago. The next event in citrus phylogeny took place at the hands of people, through thousands of years of cultivation. Citrus was cultivated from its wild ancestors, and also extensively through crossbreeding. Artificial selection also took place for important agronomic traits, which resulted in an improvement in flavor, yield, quality, and other attractive traits. We cannot say for certain when cultivation of citrus started, but archaeological and ancient literature shine some light on the subject. Citrus seeds were discovered in an excavation in the Mesopotamian civilization, dating to around 4000 BC. Citrus is also referenced in some Chinese literature, dating back to 2000 BC. If citrus ended up in Mesopotamia 6,000 years ago, which is outside of its native range, it is safe to say citrus cultivation dates back to Neolithic China and India, around 8 to 10,000 years ago. It is highly likely that before the time of agriculture, hunter-gatherers readily consumed ancestral forms of citrus. It is only natural to assume that during the early agricultural revolution, humans cultivated citrus seeds for the first time and planted them next to their settlements. Over the next thousands of years, humans molded and bred citrus into the hundreds or possibly thousands of varieties we know today. I will give a brief description of the genealogy of cultivated citrus species, and go over which species were specifically crossed together. The 2 most prevalent ancestral species, whose genes are found in almost every citrus variety, are Citrus maxima and Citrus reticulata, or pomelos and mandarins. Interestingly, mandarins, which were thought to be pure decades ago, actually contain pomelo or Citrus maxima introgression. In fact, pomelo introgression is now a general rule for all cultivated mandarin or tangerine species. Introgression refers to the genetic information of one species to another as a result of hybridization and repeated backcrossing. Therefore, every tangerine and mandarin that is used for widespread cultivation is actually a hybrid of the 2 ancestral species. There are 2 distinct groups of mandarins based on how much pomelo introgressions can be found in them. The first group only contains 1 to 10% of the pomelo admixture and is composed of the more traditional mandarins, such as Cleopatra, Sunki, and Pocan, to name a few. The second group of mandarins contains much more pomelo admixture at around 12 to 30%. This is composed of the modern mandarins, such as Satsuma, Clementine, and King, to name a few. Interestingly, and to make things more complicated, the sweet orange, sour orange, grapefruit, and all of their own admixtures, such as tangelos, tangors, and orangellos, are composed of the same two ancestral species as well, pomelos and mandarins. All these fruits closely share the same genetic material, but are phenotypically and taste-wise so different. Different ways pomelos and mandarins are introgressed result in all of these different varieties. It should also be noted that different mandarin and pomelo varieties were used in creating these other varieties. When you simply cross a pomelo with a mandarin, the result is a sour orange. A sour orange is not the same as a sweet orange. The sour orange is a simple hybridization of the two ancestral species, when the sweet orange is a complex introgression of backcrossing between pomelos and mandarins for generations. The grapefruit was a recent addition to the plethora of citrus varieties, only coming into existence in the 17th century on the Barbados Islands. It was the result of a cross between a sweet orange and a pomelo. The next important ancestral species for modern citrus varieties is the citron, or Citrus medica. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, the lemon genome is comprised of 3 species: citrons at 50%, pomelos at 18%, and mandarins at 31%. It is most likely the lemon is a hybrid of a sour orange and a citron. The Rangpur lime and rough lemon are both the result of a citron crossed with a mandarin, likely of different varieties of mandarin. A citron crossed with a micrantha is what gives us the Mexican lime. As you can already tell, the citron, pomelo, and the mandarin are responsible for the majority of cultivated citrus and economically important citrus varieties. Inconginensis crossed with the mandarin is what gives us the papita, the yuzu. The last progenitor Asian species not mentioned is the kumquat, which has many varieties and shares crosses with mostly all the Asian ancestral species. The one I will mention is the calamondin, which is the result of a cross between a male kumquat and a female mandarin. The only Asian species not mentioned on this list is Citrus manxinensis, which hasn't really been cultivated by people. The Australian limes have recently started undergoing hybridizations. The Australian blood lime is a result of an acid mandarin and an Australian finger lime. The Australian sunrise lime is a result of a cross between a finger lime and the as aforementioned calamondin. Citrus hybrids are extremely complicated, and there are hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. I plan one day in the future to do a video specifically about interesting citrus hybrids. Hopefully this section explained at least the basics on the origins of different citrus varieties. The story of citrus, its origins and evolution, is fascinating. This fruit is such a major part of our modern diet, and yet so much of its past remains mysterious. We have an idea of the relatedness of citrus ancestral species, but nothing concrete. There are still some contradicting theories out there. We can at least say for certain Citrus maxima reticulata, Medica manxinensis, Micrantha, Fortunella, Inconginensis, and the Australian limes make up their own native species. It can also be said that all these different native citrus species are all members of the same genus, with the exception of Poncerus. There is also sufficient evidence that the origin of the citrus genus we know today took place in Assam, northern Myanmar, and South China. The citrus fossil Lynx anginensis took us back over 8 million years into citrus evolution, starting in the late Miocene cooling and ending in the glacial maximums of the Pleistocene. We also went over the basics of when domestication likely took place, and how modern varieties came into being today. The contents of the theories discussed will likely change as more research is conducted in the future. I personally find this exciting and can't wait to hear the results of future studies. Hopefully this documentary will spark a sense of fascination the next time you use a lemon to flavor your water, add lime to your alcohol, or bite into a juicy navel orange. Hey guys, Anthroman here. Thank you for watching the video, especially if you've managed to make it this far. I put a lot of work into this video, and plan to do other projects like this in the future. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. Until next time, see ya guys.